Well, hello everyone. It's Billiam again, and I know it's been a long time. Just put out a little fishing video there. Awesome! What a crazy storm, but we didn't catch any fish, but it was amazing, 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 amazing. So we're back with the last half of this book, Lost Lemon Mine, and so everybody start our safety meeting and get to reading. All right. So I want to give a shout out to a couple people. Jeremy Cantor, thank you so much. Check out his channel. See, Creed, Nine Finger Mining. Check out his channel. Chris Neville, check out his channel. And GS Prospecting. I noticed those four in particular. I get a lot of comments from them, so just check out their channel. All right, so this is the last half of the book, and this is chapter 4. This is basically the cast of characters. So let's get into it. It's a little bit, that's not that long. I think we'll get into it and get her done, no problem. All right, so chapter 4, the cast of characters. The passage of time has made it difficult to track down detailed, accurate information about most of the major players in the Lost Lemon drama. Census records, newspaper articles, and local and oral histories provide clues, but there are few certainties. There is no reliable information to who was who. The two fragmentary newspaper accounts that survive each give a different name for the central character. The Christian names differ, and the surnames are spelled inconsistently. I guess we're going to start off with Lemon here. The prospector Lemon is called by various names in different versions of the Lost Lemon Mine story. This is not surprising given the nature of the yarn, but the attraction of the tale lies in the intrigue of the murder, the lure of hidden gold, and the excitement inherent in trying to unravel a century-old detective tale, not in such humdrum details as Lemon's first name. Yet, if we are to find the historic man buried in the legend, it is necessary to examine the few and contradictory references to this mysterious prospector. In this book, The Range Men, in his book, The Range Men, which was published in 1913, L.V. Kelly writes, a man named Mark Lemon, at present living in Montana, tells of a prospecting trip he and a party made into the Porcupine Hills in 1869. They found, he declares, placer gold of such exceeding riches that even their hopes were satisfied, but the Blackfeet or Pigeons came down and killed all but Lemon, who upon escaping has never returned, though he still asserts he knows the point where the placer deposits can be found. Pigeons. Maybe you guys can help me figure out if I'm saying that right or not. I don't know if you can see that. Pigeons? Pigeons? Not sure. Let's see where we're... Okay. Significantly, this account puts Lemon in the Porcupine Hills in 1869, 1 year before he was supposed to have killed Blackjack. That was his partner, as we learned earlier. While Kelly describes a prospector named Mark Lemon, Florence Crosing refers to a Jack Lemon. Frida Bundy's version of the tale talks of Bill Lemon, and Dan Riley and Neil Nicholson sidestep the difficulty by not referring to Lemon's Christian name at all. This, of course, is being discussed in these narratives. The best place to start the search is within the pages of the newspapers of that day. To these newspapers, the story of the Lost Lemon Mine, or Lemon Gulch, was just a news story, not an exciting legend told and retold many times. But we must be cautious. Even today's newspapers frequently report versions of the news that are at odds with the facts, and such errors are not unique to the 21st century. Fake news, I guess that is. or misconstrued tales. The Lemon Gulch story that appeared in the Calgary Daily Herald on October 6, 1886, is of little assistance, as it does not mention Lemon's Christian name. The article in the Helena Daily Rocky Mountain Gazette on August 6, 1870, gives the name of the prospector as Frank Lemon. Here at last is something that dates from the period and that can be checked. The Helena Daily Rocky Mountain Gazette reported that Frank Lemon was a blacksmith living at the mouth of Cedar Creek in June of 1870. This gives us a name, a time, and a place. Firm clues to the identity of the prospector. A check of the Montana State Census for the year 1870 reveals that a Ben Lemon was living at Cedar Creek Mines. His occupation was listed as mine worker, while his age was given as 37 years. At first, the names Ben Lemon and Frank Lemon do not appear very similar, and Lemon is spelt differently, one with one M, one with two. However, the microfilm of the original handwritten census document shows Ben Lemon's middle initial as F. Given the American habit of naming sons after deceased statesmen, it seems possible that Ben F. Lemon could stand for Benjamin Franklin Lemon, probably known to his friends as Ben or Frank. The Helena Daily Rocky Mountain Gazette also mentions a gentleman named Ben Northington in the article concerning Lemon. A further check of the original census record shows that Ben Northington was 36 years of age, a mine worker, and that he was listed next to Ben Lemon on the census record. The two men lived in the same domicile, recorded as a dwelling number 364. When two people living together shared a common Christian name, often one of them was called by a second Christian name. Hence, Ben Lemon could have become Frank Lemon. Given the similarity in their ages, their occupations, and the fact that they both lived in Cedar Creek in the same dwelling, a strong case can be made that Ben F. Lemon is the Frank Lemon mentioned in the newspaper article. There was one other individual named Lemon living at Cedar Creek. That was James Lemon. He was 51 at the time of the census, and his occupation was listed as prospecting mines. The census did not list a middle initial for James Lemon. Could he be our mysterious prospector? The only firm link with the newspaper article is the spelling of his surname. A case could also be made that James Lemon's occupation, prospecting mines, coincides with what we know of the Lemon who is said to have initially discovered the mine. It is, however, at odds with the newspaper article, which records Lemon's occupation as a blacksmith. If Ben F. Lemon, who worked in the mines, is our man, then the spelling of his name as reported by the Gazette is in error. However, this would hardly have been unusual. Newspapers of the day sometimes spelled names two different ways within a single article, and it would be unwise to rest a case on this evidence. The census does not list a middle initial for prospector James Lemon, and his occupation does not match the article. While it is difficult to reconcile these minor contradictions, there is a good chance that either James Lemon or Ben F. Lemon, both residents of Cedar Creek, Montana, could be the man at the heart of the mystery. The only other man named Lemon or Lemon in 1870 Montana territorial census is James Lemon, age 25, living in Gallatin County, Bozeman Precinct, Montana. So Gallatin County, Bozeman Precinct, Montana. The Montana territorial poll list for 1864 shows 4 men named Lemon or Lemon, so 1 M or 2 M's, living at Virginia City, and an R. Lemon living at Nevada City. There is no historical information that links any of these men to any published account relating to the Lost Lemon Mine story. However, it is possible that R. Lemon, listed as living at Nevada City, may be the Robert H. Lemon mentioned in the papers of Lieutenant James H. Bradley from Fort Benton. Holy shit. That's a lot of information to take in. Bradley writes of Lemon's arrival at Fort Benton in 1863. Quote, Robert H. Lemon succeeded to the charge of Fort LaBarge, which had not been a very profitable business and was destined to bring pecuniary disaster upon its owners, pecuniary disaster upon its owners, end quote. The report goes on to say that Lemon discharged the former agent at LaBarge and put his business in the hands of Andrew Dawson, the man who adopted the famous Scout Jerry Potts as a young boy. This may be a very important clue. In the summer of 1862, a package of gold-bearing sand was received by Dawson from Jean Larue, that's his name, Larue, who has been identified as the priest who assisted Lemon in Senator Dan Riley's account. It is possible that in the course of their business relationship at Fort Benton, the gold was mentioned to Robert Lemon by Dawson. If this were the case, perhaps there is a connection between Robert Lemon and Fort Benton, who had learned from Dawson of the Gold Gulch in the north, and a prospector named Mark Lemon, who was seen in the Porcupine Hills in 1869. There is also a reference to Robert Lemon in The Mountain Men and the Fur Trade of the Far West, written by Leroy R. Haffen. In this book, R.H. Madison of the State Historical Society of North Dakota mentions Robert Lemon's travels during 1860 to 61. Another person who took part in the trading venture was Robert Lemon, a clerk in Campbell's St. Louis office. Traveling overland, the partners established 2 posts on the upper Missouri, one at Poplar River, Montana, which was operated by Larpenteur and Lemon. There is little doubt that this is the same Robert Lemon who was involved with the trading company at Fort Benton in 1863. As a partner in quite a large trading company, it is unlikely he would have had time to dash off into the hills looking for gold. Therefore, it seems reasonable to conclude that Robert Lemon is not directly involved with our story. Possibly, Robert Lemon related the story of Larue's golden sand to a brother or another relative, the prospector seen by Kelly. This would certainly provide the solid link between Larue's gold and the mysterious Lemon and help to tie some of the confusing elements of the story together. The last newspaper reference to Lemon appeared in 1886, the Calgary Daily Herald article, The Lemon Gulch. We read those articles before. Lemon has, we believe, been seen at the new diggings in the Sweetgrass Hills recently. History has not recorded the final end of James Lemon, Ben F. Lemon, or Robert Lemon. It is one of them our elusive murderer. Or are they merely persons who, by virtue of sharing the same name of a central figure in Western Canada's most puzzling story, have become themselves a small part of the mystery of the lost Lemon mine? So that was Lemon. Jack Lemon, Robert Lemon, Lemon. Our next character they're going to talk about here is Blackjack, the one who was murdered. So let's see what they say about him. Blackjack, according to Senator Dan Riley's version of the legend, Lemon's unfortunate partner, Blackjack was the true discoverer of the Caribou diggings in British Columbia. Using that clue, historian Dr. Hugh Dempsey tracked down a well-known caribou prospector named Nemia T. Smith. According to Dempsey, this individual, who was nicknamed Blackjack, was born in Maryland. He joined the Fraser River Gold Rush in 1858 and there started a long partnership with Thomas Latham, known as Dancing Bill. He went to the Caribou the following year and made several fortunes, his most famous strike being in the Blackjack Tunnel on Williams Creek in 1862. Check Williams Creek, everyone. If you guys are up there, make sure there's no claims around or get permission. Pan the shit out of that area, that's for sure. This information suggests that Nemia Smith could be the Blackjack involved with the Lost Lemon Mine. Interestingly, another man named Smith sheds some light on Blackjack's subsequent travels. In his History of British Columbia, H. Bancroft writes of a man named A.G. Smith. A.G. Smith and several others who in 1866 went to Helena in Montana worked successfully until August, when an excitement was created about the Saskatchewan diggings. This is referring to the North Saskatchewan River, which fanned into action the general desire to prospect the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountains, opposite the Upper Columbia. Smith set out at once with 7 others for Edmonton by way of the Kootenay Pass. Right through here. They arrived there safely in 38 days, despite the hostile First Nations. That's not what it says in here. The gold deposits were found scattered for 100 miles above and below Edmonton upon the Saskatchewan bars, but these could be worked only for a short time in the spring and autumn when the river was low and the yield was nearly $2 a day or less with rockers. So old rockers, rocking it, dipping water. It's crazy. I'll try and throw some pictures, probably not in this video, but in another, maybe in this video. On May 2nd, 1867, the Victoria Daily Colonist reprinted an article written by Smith that had first appeared in the New Westminster, British Columbia. In the article, Smith refers to 2 well-known caribou prospectors named Blackjack and Dancing Bill, who made a trip to Fort Edmonton searching for gold. This puts Blackjack at Fort Edmonton 3 years before Lemon made his prospecting trip with a partner bearing this nickname. The Williams Creek Blackjack's familiarity with the country and first-hand knowledge of the gold-bearing gravels on the North Saskatchewan would have been very helpful to Lemon. Smith's article reads as follows. Saskatchewan and Big Bend. The British Columbian has conversed with A.G. Smith, who has just arrived from Fort Edmonton on the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan. He went in by way of Vermilion Pass from Blackfoot and was 38 days in reaching Fort Edmonton. This country is a magnificent open one, dotted with lakes intersected by streams, and everywhere covered with the most luxuriant grasses. Also abounding in game of all kinds, native to this land from prairie chicken to grizzly bear, and the shaggy buffalo. Winter set in on the 9th of October, and Smith and his party remained at the fort, subsisting on fish and rabbits, and the kindness of Mr. Christie, the HB Company's agent. The so-called gold mines are confined to the bars of the river, extending so far as yet known. as is yet known. Some 50 miles above and 50 miles below Edmonton, these mines can be worked for a few weeks in the spring and a few weeks in the fall of every year, and with rockers, the only machinery yet in use at the time. Yield variously 75 cents to $2.50 a day. The gold is very fine, and quicksilver is used in collecting it. There were less than a dozen men, mostly half-breeds, that's not a good word, at work. A party of 7, including Blackjack and Dancing Bill, 2 well-known caribouites. I've never seen that word before. Were organizing and fitting out at Edmonton with a view to prospecting the entire country through by Peace River to Caribou. The Blackfoot are very troublesome, they say, and it is estimated that they have murdered about 300 miners in and about Elk River and Fort Benton passes. They are a numerous and warlike tribe and openly avow their determination to kill every white man who comes into their country. I doubt that. It is interesting to note that Smith mentions the hostility of the Blackfoot. This certainly fits with L.V. Kelly's version of the story, wherein Lemon told about Blackfoot, or Pagians, having massacred his party in the Porcupine Hills 2 years later. Again, this is just a story, so there is a possibility, but no conclusive evidence that the Blackjack at Williams Creek was Nehemiah Smith. However, there is evidence to dispute Riley's allegation that the Blackjack of Williams Creek and the Blackjack of Lost Lemon Mine were one and the same man. The major problem with connecting the 2 Blackjacks has to do with the timing of the latter's death. Riley stated that Blackjack was murdered by Lemon in 1870 or 1871. If this is true, then the mysterious Blackfoot from the Caribou could not have been Lemon's partner. According to Bancroft, the Williams Creek Blackjack was in Victoria in 1877 to 78, 7 years after he was supposed to have been murdered by Lemon. Another of the earliest miners on Williams Creek, who became wealthy as the owner of the Blackjack mine, was at Victoria in the winter of 1877 to 78. Dependent on charity for his daily bread. Admittedly, this individual is not specifically identified as Blackjack, as the company was referred to in the Caribou Sentinel as the Blackjack and Burns. Thus, there is a possibility that Bancroft is referring to Burns. However, there can be absolutely no doubt about the article published in the Victoria Daily Colonist on July 10th, 1883. And besides, guys, you can go back and check like these newspapers and look for these articles and dates, and they'll just come up online. And you know, we've read them. We've read them already. Anyways, yeah. In the stories, was it? Yeah, Prospector Stories, I believe. Desperado Stories? No, it was in the original newspaper stories here, in the Prospector Stories, which was chapter 1. Where were we? Okay, anyways. So, however, there can be absolutely no doubt about the article published in the Victoria Daily Colonist on July 10th, 1883, which reports Blackjack still alive, although failing health in a Victoria hospital. This is part of the article. Blackjack, one of the most noted of the Caribou's early prospectors, was an American named Blackjack. He led the way to many rich streaks of pay dirt, and at one time owned rich claims and scattered his dust like a duke. For a long time, Blackjack's been an inmate of the hospital, old, sick, and decrepit. He has been tenderly cared for, and today, with his health somewhat reestablished, is desirous of revisiting his native land. It is therefore hoped that a helping hand will be extended to him by citizens generally, so that the poor old pioneer may sail for home again by steamer that leaves today. This is 13 years after Blackjack was supposed to have been murdered. Therefore, it seems unlikely that the unnamed Blackjack of Williams Creek fame could be the equally mysterious Blackjack of the Lost Lemon Mine. Whew. Excuse me. The physical connection between the two may have been made by Jean Larue. On October 9th, 1866, Larue visited Fort Edmonton with a party of Bloods who had come to the fort to trade. Since Blackjack and his party also arrived at Edmonton on October 9th, it is certain that Blackjack and Larue would have met. Hugh Dempsey has suggested that, given the fact that Senator Dan Riley got his information about the Lost Lemon Mine from his friend Lafayette French, who was previous, and that French and Larue shared quarters and swapped stories of their days at Blackfoot Crossing, Larue may have embellished the story he had heard from miners in Montana about Lemon and his lost mine. For effect, he may have added Blackjack, the famous prospector from the Caribou, to give us the bones of the story that survives today. However, there is a second possibility in Fred Kennedy's account of Chief Sitting Eagle's story, whom we read about earlier as well, Chief Sitting Eagle. Jack Lemon and Blackjack are the same person, and Dancing Bill is his partner. A.G. Smith's story could also lead to the same conclusion. If that were the case, it's possible that somewhere in the constant retelling of the legend of the Lost Lemon Mine, someone got the names confused, perhaps placing the nickname Blackjack on the wrong individual. Blackjack was probably a very common nickname, and there was no shortage of men in the goldfields who called themselves by a variety of names, not wanting their true identities to be known. As a result, we can never know for certainty which Blackjack was being referred to, or if there were multiple Blackjacks in play. Such is the sad lot of the historian. Another explanation is that Jimmy White's account of the Lost Lemon Mine is correct concerning the name of Lemon's partner, and that the Blackjack we are seeking was a man named McGowan, who we read about earlier too. Unfortunately, no information has survived concerning the mysterious McGowan. A search of available records gives no clue to the existence of either McGowan or McIver. the holder of Blackjack's map to the diggings. That'd be a cool map to have. So next we're going to learn about Larue. And I'm going to show you a little picture, which is cool. And yeah, let's get to it. Jean Larue. As noted above, the priest associated with Dan Riley's version of the Lost Lemon Mine story is usually identified as Jean Larue, a French-Canadian who lived with the Blackfoot and acted as a translator to Chief Crowfoot. His name appears with a variety of spellings, Larue, Larue, but there is no doubt that the references pertain to one man. While Larue was not an ordained Catholic priest, he nevertheless functioned in this capacity with the Blackfoot. Performing weddings and baptisms, Larue came in contact with Lafayette French at Blackfoot Crossing while working as a translator for Crowfoot. According to Riley's account, Larue became involved in the Lost Lemon Mine saga when he heard the confession of the half-insane Lemon after he murdered Blackjack. Riley states that this meeting took place at Tobacco Plains. Here lies one of the problems in the story, though. The region, commonly known as Tobacco Plains, has an area of about 20 or 30 miles and lies south of Elko, BC. About 1/3 of the area is in British Columbia and 2/3 in Montana. It is unclear in the story whether the reference was to Tobacco Plains in general or if it was the name of a specific place. Some people believe that Tobacco Plains referred to in the story was actually the mission at St. Ignatius in Montana, or Jocko Mission, south of Flathead in Montana. There was also a small trading post called Tobacco Plains, about 1/4 mile north of the international boundary, consisting of several buildings and the office of the First Nations agent for that area. This post was south of the junction of the Elk and the Kootenay rivers and 6 miles north of the Kootenay trading post on the Montana side. Lemon certainly would have traveled this route after leaving the Highwood. However, there is reason to doubt that the meeting between Lemon and Larue ever took place. Jocko Mission, St. Ignatius, and the settlement at Tobacco Plains, given as the possible locations for the meeting, are all well within the territory of the Kootenays, traditional enemies of the Blackfoot, and the following account gives some idea that the state of relations between them. So near Gleichen, Gleichen, in southern Alberta lies Squaw Coulee. Charles Short, a pioneer of Spitzy, tells of finding human bones littering the bottom of Squaw Coulee. He was told by the Blackfoot that the shattered bones were all that remained of a party of Kootenay murdered by the Blackfoot. Apparently, a band of Kootenay had been driven from their normal ranges in the Rocky Mountains by deep snow. They cautiously made their way into Blackfoot territory and set up their lodges in Squaw Coulee. Squaw Coulee, hoping to trap buffalo in a nearby pound. The Blackfoot attacked the camp while the hunters were away. On their return, the hunters found the smoking ruins of their burnt teepees and the bodies of their slaughtered women and children. Given this adversarial relationship, it would have been suicide for the Blackfoot and those closely associated with them to have traveled deep into Kootenay territory, to the trading post at Tobacco Plains, Jocko Mission, or St. Ignatius. It is also highly unlikely that the Kootenay would have welcomed Larue, given his close ties to Crowfoot, their sworn enemy. The connection between Larue and Lemon may have been made through Lafayette French, who was known to have grub-staked prospectors and traded supplies among the Blackfoot, Stonies, and Kootenay. The reference to French staking Lemon at Tobacco Plains, coupled with French's friendship with Larue, may provide the key to understanding how the story evolved. The best documented historical reference tying Larue to rumors of gold is found in the journals written by Lieutenant Bradley when he was stationed at Fort Benton. So I'm going to show you a picture here. Hopefully you can read all that, have a quick look. Pause where you need to pause. I'm just going to slowly move it around. Pull it out. There you go. So underneath that picture, it was the guy in the back standing was Jean Larue, and he poses with from left to right. So when you were seeing it, it would be from right to left. Were these men called One Spot was Crowfoot's Pipe Bear, Blood Chief Red Crow, and Pigeon Chief North Axe. Okay, and this is out of the Glenbow archives. In the summer of 1862, a package of sand was received by Dawson, a trader at Benton, from a certain Larue, a pretended priest who had been living for several years among the Bloods and Blackfeet. Larue sent word with the package that it was gold-bearing sand, taken from a gulch in the north, and that he would guide a party to the locality if desired. The sand was washed at the fort and was found to contain an astonishing proportion of gold. A party was instantly formed, consisting of Matthew Carroll, James M. Amau, John Mason Brown, a brother of Gratz Brown of Missouri. Gratz Brown, I think we read about him just a little bit, and Dr. Atkinson. Paul Longtime, Henry Boswick, Edward Williamson. Hey, I had a buddy named Edward Williamson growing up. That's cool. David Carafel, George Magnum, and John Monroe, and blank, which proceeded north in July to prospect. Their party pursued a northwesterly course, prospecting upon every stream from the Marias to the Willows, a point about 25 miles south of Fort Edmonton, getting a light color of gold upon every stream, but nothing to justify working. Larue could not be found, and the unsuccessful prospectors, after passing the summer in fruitless search, concluded that they had been victimized by the faithless Larue, and turned their faces homeward. Arriving at Fort Benton in September in such a state of mind that they would have executed summary vengeance on Larue had he fallen into their hands. It is the present belief of Mr. Amois, shared by others of his associates, that Larue had purposely deceived them by mixing a large quantity of gold dust with the sand and representing this mixture as a fair specimen from rich fields known to him. If Larue did in fact mislead the Fort Benton miners in 1862 about rich gold fields in an unnamed gulch, then he certainly would have misled French with stories of gold. This deception might simply have been for the sake of a good yarn, told around the fire in French's post at Blackfoot Crossing. Perhaps Larue, like French, knew a good story when he heard one, and for the sake of the storyteller's art, altered certain key elements of the tale. Given this, it is certainly possible that French, who was known to have prospected for gold for many years in his travels, may have enthusiastically seized upon Larue's suggestion of a rich gold find in First Nations territory. Larue's tale, coupled with Lemon's claim of finding rich diggings, may have been embellished by French to become the Lost Lemon Mine legend, which makes sense. A good campfire story was worth its weight in gold, and it's likely that elements of several different stories have found their way into surviving accounts. As a young man, Dan Riley worked for French in High River, so it is almost certain that French was the source of his version of the tale. However, there seems to be no doubt that French himself believed in the Lost Lemon Mine, for he spent the remainder of his life searching for it. Wow. The story of gold diggings, as told by Larue, may have some connection with the following account, which is based upon an article that appeared in Frontier Guide to Waterton. In 1872, a gold strike was reported on the Old Man River. An unnamed Mexican had formed a partnership with a miner from Helena, Montana, who had located a rich deposit of gold. Together with a third miner, they made their way into Canada as far north as the Old Man River, Apparently, the diggings were quite rich, and within a short time they had taken $1,200 in coarse gold from along the banks of the river. The country surrounding the Old Man River was within the territory controlled by the Blackfoot, who were very hostile towards any whites traveling across their land. Eventually, the miners were attacked by the Blackfoot, and 2 of them were killed. The Mexican, although severely wounded, managed to hide the gold and escape with his life. Arriving at Fort Benton after recuperating from his wounds, the Mexican attempted to form a new party in an effort to recover his gold. He eventually joined up with a group of whiskey traders who were heading north into Canada. Again, misfortune struck his venture, for the traders fell into the clutches of the Northwest Mounted Police, and everyone was promptly arrested. The Mexican told his story to the constables at Fort Macleod, promising to exchange the gold for his release. When the Northwest Mounted Police investigated the scene of the massacre, the bones of the 2 miners were found, along with buried remnants of wagons, tents, and harness. But no gold was ever found. The Mexican was returned to Fort Macleod, and his imprisonment for his involvement in the whiskey trade. When spring came, he managed to escape from the stockade, but was never able to return for his lost gold. Sometime later, he was found dead on the prairie with a bullet in his body. Is there a connection between the tale of the gold on the Old Man River and a story of rich gold diggings in the country of the Blackfoot, as told by Larue to the miners of Fort Benton? Perhaps the answer lies within the bones of the nameless Mexican. There's one more piece of information that may throw new light on the motives of the bogus priest. In his journals, immediately following the denunciation of Larue, Lieutenant Bradley records an opinion expressed by I.G. Baker, head of the I.G. Baker Company. Mr. I.G. Baker suggested another interpretation, and time must determine which one is true. He thinks that Larue may have sent honest dust and really intended to guide a party of two rich goldfields known to him in the ranges of the First Nations with whom he lived, but that witnessing the sudden influx of hundreds of white men to the more southern diggings as soon as they became known, fearing a similar rush into his own country, he repented of his promise and kept out of the way of the party. Didn't want to see everyone coming through, I guess. We have no way of knowing if I.G. Baker was correct in his assumption. Whatever the verdict of his history, only Jean Larue knew the truth about his gold. If Larue was largely responsible for creating the legend of the Lost Lemon Mine, it was only because those who came after him wanted to believe it. Larue settled in Pincer Creek from 1892 to 1912, but little more is known of him. Eventually, he entered the Lacombe home in Midnapore, just south of Calgary, and died completely destitute in 1919. All right, and here's the story of Lafayette French. History has left us no photographs of Lafayette French. Like Lemon and Blackjack, he is known to us only as a faceless figure trapped within the fabric of a century-old mystery. French was born in Pennsylvania in about 1840 and worked for the Standard Oil Company before coming west, where he worked as a buffalo hunter, independent trader, prospector, and in his later years as a cattleman. He first came to Alberta in the early 1880s as an independent trader. French had no loyalties to anyone but himself, and it is certain that there was no love lost between him and the I.G. Baker Company, which would have preferred to have a monopoly on trade with the Plains tribes. The natives, realizing that it was in their best interest to trade with several groups of whites, always tried to play one trader off against another. And like any other trader, French overcharged the natives when he could and underpaid them if the opportunity presented itself. But French did enjoy one advantage in dealing with the Blackfoot that his competitors did not. Some years earlier, he had saved the life of Crowfoot, their chief. The incident is chronicled in L.V. Kelly's The Rangemen. That's another book you can check out, or if you want me to read, we can read it. A passage from that is, French and the other traders trading at High River were surrounded by a large number of trafficking red men, and among them was Crowfoot, who came to French's cabin to rest. One of the traders was unpopular with Crowfoot and consequently lost considerable Blackfoot business. Much to his annoyance, thinking to remove the cause of his ban, this man filled a brave with firewater and told him to go and shoot Crowfoot in French's cabin. The Sauvage followed directions as far as going to the door of the shack, drawing a bead on Crowfoot's head and then pressing the trigger. But as he pressed, Lafayette French came around the corner, saw the state of affairs at a glance, and swung the rifle muzzle upward as it exploded, the ball crashing harmlessly into the mud roof. Crowfoot never forgot this act and continued to repay while he lived. The connection between Lafayette French, Crowfoot, and Jean Larue is very important to our understanding of the story of the Lost Lemon Mine, as it was told by Dan Riley. It was surely through Crowfoot that Larue and French met at Blackfoot Crossing. There is also a reference to French and a Father Larue at Blackfoot Crossing in The Rangemen. There's another excerpt. French, or as he was afterwards named in the Blackfoot tongue, the Lifted Arm, built a shack at Blackfoot Crossing and proceeded to take advantage of his popularity as a result of having saved the life of Chief Crowfoot. Other traders, feeling jealous of him, are said to have entered unofficially into a conspiracy with certain of the mounted police to discredit him with whites and First Nations alike. 2 women were to enter French's store and then commence screaming, whereupon the mounted police were to rush the place and arrest French on the charge of a serious crime. Crowfoot heard of it and, telling French, planned a counterplot. 2 Catholic priests, Father Larue and Father Olin, were very popular among the Blackfoot, and it was arranged with one of these men to hide himself in the store and come out at the psychological moment. The day came, and with it, the First Nations arrived and commenced to scream as per program. The thunder of horses' hooves indicated the arrival of the police. The thunder of heavy fists on the door and the roar of a voice demanding admittance in the name of the Queen indicated that the stage setting has reached the climax. Ugh. French opened the door as ordered, and the policeman who stormed in was confronted not only by French and 2 cowed First Nations, but also by the Roman Catholic priest and his churchly garments. The plot died a sudden death and was not resurrected. Okay. While Kelly does not specify whether Father Olin or Jean Larue was the priest used to foil the plot against French, it is virtually certain that Larue at least knew of it, given the nature of Larue's position as translator for Crowfoot. It seems highly probable that Larue would have been asked to render assistance to the friend who had saved Crowfoot's life. According to Dan Riley's version of the legend, French spent the remainder of his life trying to find the lost mine after receiving a crude map drawn by Lemon himself. Unfortunately, it is not possible to state with any certainty whether or not such a map ever existed. But if it did, it is clear that French believed that it was genuine. The final mention of French in The Rangemen corroborates Riley's account of his death. So apparently, that's Lafayette French's cabin there at the Crow's Nest. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. I'm sure you can look up pictures online anyhow if you want to see it. It's in Crow's Nest Pass somewhere. That's kind of cool. Lafayette French, the old trader, friend of Crowfoot, and one of the first white men in the West in its wildest days, came to an unfortunate end about Christmas of 1912. He had been living for some time up High River in a small cabin owned by George Emerson. He was an old, feeble man, and in some unknown way his cabin took fire, burning completely, and so badly injuring French that though he escaped to the prairie and was there picked up, he passed away in the High River Hospital a short time later. No doubt French, who we are told was an outrageous storyteller, would he be most gratified to know that his stories of the lost lemon mine were still inspiring people to search the mountains for Lemon's lost treasure decades later. While French's face has been lost to the past, his story and the quest for the lost lemon mine have become part of the lore of the Canadian West. No kidding. Almost done, everyone. Almost done. George Emerson. George Emerson was born in 1841 and raised in Danville, Quebec. As a young man, Emerson headed west. Homesteading in Iowa in 1868, he first came to what was then known as the Northwest Territory. Crazy. Attracted by Attracted by rumors of gold, Emerson and his party crossed the border south of Medicine Hat and made their way north to the North Saskatchewan River. The following winter, Emerson worked for the HBC at Fort Edmonton, driving dog teams and hauling freight between Fort Garry and Fort Edmonton, a trip that was over 1,000 miles. Wow. Emerson spoke both Cree and Blackfoot languages fluently, skills he no doubt acquired on the long freighting trips between Fort Garry and Fort Edmonton. The crews of these freight brigades were a mix of whites, Métis, and natives, who often spent their time gambling, drinking, fighting, and whipping it up. These wild times with the HBC served Emerson well, for it was said that as a free trader he lived among the natives on a little more than wild berries, buffalo tongues, and wild duck eggs. After the Northwest Mounted Police arrived, Emerson sold cattle to the Mounties and traded supplies from the HBC fort in Edmonton for the building of a new fort in Calgary. In 1876, Emerson bought a herd of cattle from Montana, brought a herd of cattle from Montana to the Northwest Mounted Police of Fort Macleod. This was the first of many such cattle drives, and it was probably through these dealings that Emerson and Lafayette French became friends. In 1879, Tom Lynch and Emerson brought in 1,000 head of cattle from Montana and settled on the north side of the Highwood River, about 4 miles west of the present town of High River. Cool. Emerson spent much time in his later years searching for the lost lemon mine. A prospector his whole life, Emerson would often slip away into the mountains with French for weeks at a time, scouring the coulees and passes for the elusive treasure. In his later years, George Emerson divided his time between High River and his ranch in the Sand Hills. He died in September 1920 after a short illness. Excuse me. I've been up since 2-something this morning, just bear chewing on some plums. Kept me up. Ugh. Anyways, the next character we're going to talk about is Kootenay Brown. John George Brown was born in Ennistimon, County Clare, Ireland. Ennistimon. Anyway, Ireland somewhere. On September 13th, 1839. Arriving in the Wild Horse Creek area in the summer of 1865, Brown worked as a trapper, miner, and special constable. When rumors of a rich gold strike in the North Saskatchewan circulated through the camps, Brown made his way north to Fort Edmonton through the South Kootenay Pass. Brown was taken with the wild splendor of the country and vowed to return. He finally settled in the Waterton Lakes area and teamed up with notorious whiskey trader Fred Canoose to conduct a thriving business from a crude shack near the present site of the Prince of Wales Hotel, which is probably still a crude shack. It was during this period, while trading furs with the Kootenay, that Brown earned the nickname Kootenay. Kootenay Brown. While Brown's base of operations was in Waterton Lakes, he traveled to Fort Benton and to Fort Macleod to trade, and almost certainly met Lafayette French during these expeditions. Both French and Brown prospected for oil and were involved in a joint venture with A.P. Patrick, a surveyor with the Dominion government. While it is not certain if Brown spent much time searching for the lost lemon mine, a story appeared in the Frontier Guide to Waterton that may be connected to that mine. In September of 1892, Brown delivered a sample of ore to the assay office in Fort Macleod, stating that he discovered it in a rock outcropping at 4,000 feet. When the sample was analyzed, it was found to contain gold, silver, and copper in an ore of lead known as galena. When others learned of his gold find and asked Brown about the locality of a strike, he promptly forgot where he had found it. This led to the assumption that the rock samples had come from the Waterton vicinity, and Brown did not want a gold rush to ruin the splendor of his Waterton lakes. Even if this sample did not come from the Lost Lemon Mine, the rock type is different from the sample described by the traders at Fort Benton in Montana. It seems to prove that gold was present in the rocks around Waterton Lakes, and lends credence to reports of gold found in the north along the eastern slopes of the Rockies. The remainder of Brown's days were spent around Waterton Lakes, where he lived with his Cree wife, Blue Flash of Lightning, in a small cabin in 1895. The Dominion government created a 54-square-mile reserve around the Waterton Lakes and appointed Brown as game warden and fisheries inspector. In 1911, the Kootenay Forest Reserve became Waterton Lakes National Park. Brown remained as a forest ranger, still patrolling the park on his old buckskin pony, clad in white chaps and waist sash until his retirement in 1814 at age 75. His health began to fail by the summer of 1916, and he moved to Cardston to get medical assistance. The colorful story of Kootenay Brown came to a close with his death on July 18th of 1916. Next character we read about is John Nelson. John Nelson was an old-time buffalo hunter and trader who settled in the North Fork County in the late 1860s, and in 1868 Nelson was headed into the foothills with a party of prospectors to search for gold. The prospectors lost a pair of pliers in a creek, which they then named Pincer Creek. Okay. In later years, Nelson was convinced he knew of the location of the Lost Lemon Mine and spent the final years of his life hunting for this elusive prize. Nelson died on November 12, 1907. It is reported that the dimensions of his coffin were based upon a rough estimate of his size rather than an actual measurement. It turned out that the coffin was a tad on the small side, and Nelson had to be stuffed into the box before he could be hauled away to the Livingstone Cemetery. This insult was compounded while his coffin was being moved up the hill to the cemetery into the back of an open-ended wagon. As the procession climbed the hill, the coffin began to slide out of the wagon. Nelson's son-in-law, who was following behind in a Democrat, hollered to the driver, "Look out! The old son of a bitch is getting away!" Apparently, Nelson was interred without further incident. Alright. So he's a dickhead the whole time. Perfect. Bill Olin, whom we read about previously. Bill Olin was one of the original settlers in the North Fork country, first came to the Pincer Creek area in the early 1870s with a party of traders, natives, and buffalo hunters coming north from Montana. Olin, John Nelson, and Matt Holloway settled for a time near Legrandier's Crossing on the Old Man River. Then they moved to the North Fork country, or Livingston District. Later, Olin married and moved up the creek that now bears his name, close to the spot where it enters the North Fork. Olin spent much of his time seeking the Lost Lemon Mine. He shared Nelson and Holloway's opinion that the lemon had secreted his gold in the gap, and that the treasure was a cache of stolen gold from the goldfields near Fort Steele, rather than from an actual mine. It was reported that Olin died about 1906 as a result of the final binge after having been warned by his doctor that he would have to stop drinking. In a state of intoxication, Olin froze his legs, which resulted in complications that killed him shortly afterward. He was survived by his wife and 3 children. Okay, that was chapter 4, and we'll get through chapter 5 pretty quick. Then we'll hit the epilogue, and I got a little surprise for you after we're done chapter 5. So, yeah, hope you're enjoying the story. I sure am enjoying reading it to you. So, until next time, bye for now.